Welcome to the pocket. My name is Scooter, and here for you guys today, I got my week 16 score predictions video. So that's going to have your money lines, your spreads, your over-unders for every game this week. I did post my Thursday night football score prediction on my Instagram page at the_pocket_NFL. Go follow there if you want to see those. That's where I've been posting them. I would like to get this video out earlier in the week, but it just hasn't been working out. But the score predictions in this video are going to go as follows. I'm going to give you what the matchup is, both teams' records. I'll tell you the injuries, and then I'll give you the Vegas lines so you have the full context for the game. And then I'll give you my take and then follow that up with my reasoning. Before we get into those, one last thing. Thank you guys for 150 subscribers. This has been an amazing season and an amazing first year doing YouTube, and the support has always been incredible from the beginning until now. So don't forget on this video to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel, and let's get to 200. So as promised, I got you guys on the Thursday night football recap. So let's talk about it. The Broncos traveled to the Chargers Stadium to take them on. The Chargers were 8-6 and the Broncos were 9-5 as the 6 and 7 seed of the AFC playoffs. This was a very important game for both of them and all the teams beneath them. The favorable outcome, I would have said, was probably for the Chargers to lose, right? Because then the other teams would have been closer. Now, both teams are 9-6, and instead of being, they're one extra game behind. So unfortunate for all those 6 and 8 AFC teams, the Colts, Bengals, and the Dolphins, but that's the playoff implications result of this game. But like I said, I predicted in this game the Broncos to actually pull off the upset 23-21. I had the impression in going into this game that the Broncos seem to have done a better job making adjustments in the middle of games, and then they'll get really hot, right? And usually I feel like it was in the second half, right? So I thought this game would be a little bit close. Maybe even the Chargers would take the lead. And then I anticipated that the Broncos would come back and win because Sean Payton and Bo Nix would be, clicking a little bit more as far as what they were doing on offense, right? Because I said Jim Harbaugh, maybe, he's imposing the culture on the team, but him and Justin Herbert, I figured, maybe you're just trusting Herbert and Greg Roman, right, to execute that. So maybe I sort of underestimated the Chargers, because what actually ended up happening in this game was the opposite. The Broncos, they had the lead going into halftime, 21-13. Now, something interesting also happened. The rules of it are still a little bit foggy to me, but to my understanding, the Broncos punted the ball away to the Chargers, and there was a penalty on the fair catch, and the half or the game cannot end on that, right? And by some weird black magic, loophole in the rules, they're able to line up for a free kick, not just like a field goal. It was a free kick. It was like a different formation, and Cameron Dicker made it. So I don't know. I actually didn't know about that. I don't know how many of you guys did, but that was pretty interesting. And I get, it was definitely impactful, right? Because instead of going into half down 21-10, now you're down essentially just one touchdown, right? Because you can go ahead and get that 2 points. So that was huge for the Chargers. And then for the second half, as I stated, the opposite of what I expected happened. The script flipped. The Broncos only were able to kick a field goal in each quarter, right? So they only increased their lead to 27. But the Chargers, they were able to score 6 points in the third quarter, right? So they sort of started gaining on them. It was 24-19 at that point. And then in the fourth quarter, they were able to score 2 touchdowns, I believe pretty late, due to some good running from Gus Edwards and a nice throw from Justin Herbert. And 2-point, they were able to make the plays they needed to make in order to win this close game. So they sort of proved me wrong about what my impression is of them. In the power rankings, I had the Chargers at 13 and the Broncos at 12. So I stood true to my ranking, but now I guess that at the very least is going to have to flip, and then we'll see how the rest of the games pan out to see if anyone moves ahead or behind these two teams. Starting things off, we have some Saturday games this week. We have one at 1 o'clock and one at 4 o'clock. This is to make room for the Christmas schedule, I believe, because you can't play on Sunday and then on Wednesday, so that's why they did this. But for the first game, the 1 o'clock game, we have the 9-5 Houston Texans traveling to Kansas City to take on the 13-1 Chiefs. Now, the spread, the lines for this game is Kansas City -3 and 41.5. I did check these Thursday, so they might be a little bit different, but that's what they were when I checked it then. So that's going to project a Chiefs win of 22 and a quarter to 19 and a quarter. So that's decently low scoring. We know the Chiefs have a good defense. The Texans certainly have a good defensive roster, and they might be a little spotty game to game, but I guess the Vegas projection does make sense to me. The injuries for the Texans out. They have John Mechie III, Cade Stover, who's their backup tight end, and then Juice Scruggs, who is a guard, and then also Foley Fatukasi. I hope I said that right. He's a defensive tackle, and he's actually pretty significant. I believe like a 3-tech, a rotational player. He can make some noise on third down and do a decent job with the run. And then questionable, they have linebacker Christian Harris. For the Chiefs out, they have tackle DJ Humphries with a hamstring. They have corner defensive back Chamari Connor, and then questionable, they have Leo Chanel, their linebackers. So I would say overall the injuries aren't going to be too bad. If anything, they're just going to sort of cancel each other out, right? Nobody's really that healthy right now. But what I would say is the big thing is it's not listed here, but Patrick Mahomes had a high ankle sprain last week. And obviously, if you know anything about high ankle sprains, you know that they are not easy to recover from. And honestly, you really just need to kind of stay off of it in order to do so, right? Because you can do as much rehab as you want, but those sprains, you just got to heal in your ankle. But he is going to play in this game. They're probably giving him something. They're going to tape him up, and we've seen this before from Mahomes. We've seen him play through injuries, actually ankle sprains as well. And he's still been able to get it done, right? Because I think he's smart enough of a player to understand how that's going to affect his ability and how he needs to adjust his decision making. So since he is playing, right, and he's not missing a week or anything, I'm confident that he's still going to be able to figure it out. I mean, the Texans do have an elite edge duo with Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, but I would say the Chiefs' interior is still healthy enough, and Mahomes is still smart enough to, like I said, make those adjustments to his game, his style of play, how he scrambles when he decides to. And he's going to be able to step up and make the plays in the pocket that he needs to. Stroud is going to be in a similar situation facing the Chiefs defense, as the Texans offensive line hasn't really been all that good this year. And they like to run, really deep shot plays to Nico Collins and, the play action off of running the ball with Mixon. And that stuff takes time. So even if you can run the ball and set it up, you still have to block it up when you decide to, call those shots. So I have a little bit more faith in even an injured Patrick Mahomes and Chiefs team to get this done in a close game like this. I do think Houston's going to cover, or I would bet it, right? But I'm going to take the Chiefs to win 20-18. 4:00 on Saturday. We have an AFC North showdown between the 10-4 Pittsburgh Steelers, who are going to Baltimore to versus the 9-5 Ravens. Now, in this game, the Baltimore Ravens are favored by 6, and there is a 45-point total for the over-under. So that would project about a Ravens win 25.5 to 19.5. We saw these two teams face off earlier in the year at Pittsburgh, and the Steelers won a really low-scoring game where they were really able to be one of the only teams to really limit this Ravens offense besides a team like the Eagles. Now, in this matchup, it's going to be a little bit different. It's at Baltimore. For the Steelers, they're going to be without Pickens again, without Deshaun Elliott, the safety, and then questionable for them is going to be Dante Jackson and then Larry Ogunjobi, who might not be the most impactful players on their defense, but you like to have every piece of depth you can get, especially in a divisional matchup where these teams know you so well. They're also going to be without Fields. He's not the starter, but they do like to mix him in every now and then, so I thought that was worth mentioning. And then the Ravens, they're going to be without Nelson Aguilar, Deontay Johnson, who's it says personal, and then Jalen Armour Davis with a hamstring. He's a corner. Questionable is Rashad Bateman, Daniel Falele, and then linebacker Odafe Owe. So they're a little banged up as well. I don't think they're going to miss someone like Deontay Johnson and Nelson Aguilar. He's gotten in there here and there. But if they miss Rashad Bateman and Nelson Aguilar, I might change what my take would be on this. But I am going to take the Ravens to win 24-20. So that would be Steelers to cover the 6-point spread, and that would be under 45. I'm not with the over under. It's a little tricky, right? Because you see what happens in Pittsburgh, right? And you got to assume that low score and like Lamar getting held to that great, that great of a showing by the Steelers defense. You got to assume that that's some like, psychology, black magic. They went to Pittsburgh, and for some reason they can never do well in Pittsburgh. But you would imagine now that they're at home and they have that sort of advantage. And, they had a bit of a get right game and they've played well up and, since that game, that they're going to be able to get it done this time. Right. But I'm not going to say it's going to be by, having this just, explosive offense that the Steelers can't stop. We've seen them stop this Ravens offense before, and they're still going to have TJ Watt. So I'm still expecting the Steelers to put up a fight, right? They might not have Pickens, but their defense will do a good enough job to keep them in this game, but their offense won't be able to capitalize like the Ravens will. And the Ravens will pull it out in the end of the day. Like I said, Pittsburgh's not 100%. So I'm going with the Ravens 24-20. Steelers +6 and then under 45. Our Sunday games. Starting at 1 o'clock, we have the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 12-2, traveling to Washington to take on the 9-5 Commanders. We did see these two teams play earlier in the year. It was sort of low scoring. The Eagles eventually took advantage in the fourth quarter and took a commanding lead when the Commanders responded by, kind of getting some garbage time points. But the Eagles decisively won the first time. They looked way better in the trenches. Although the Commanders did have some elements of keeping up with it, it clearly wasn't enough and consistent throughout the game. The Vegas projection for this game is Eagles are favored by 3.5, and there's a 45.5 point total. So that would be, we'll call it 23-19. I'm not sure if you guys want the decimals. Please tell me in the comments. So the Eagles are going to be without Bryce Hupp, who they acquired this offseason, but has been sort of, a little non-existent in the beginning of the year, and he, kind of started getting in there and doing okay, but now he's out. Questionable is Britton Covey's one of their deeper wide receivers, and then their safety, Sidney Brown, with a concussion. Now for the Commanders, they still aren't going to have Jonathan Allen with the pec, and questionable for them is Zach Ertz and Jeremy Chin. So if they're missing those two, that would definitely, I think, be a big hit to them. The Eagles aren't very beat up or anything, so you're going to need to be 100% if you're going to even compete with this team. But Washington is still sneaky, right? We know that Jaden Daniels, despite something like the pass rush last week where he got sacked 8 times, is still capable of making, the 2 or 3 most important plays for his team's offense, and, doing it by scrambling and making some amazing play to Terry McLaurin. So I don't know if we're going to see that this game. Quinyon Mitchell did a really good job of handling Terry last time, but I think Terry's going to come back with a couple new tricks, right? Against the rookie, a veteran guy like that shouldn't get locked up twice in one season. But, maybe it's not just Quinyon, right? The rest of the Eagles defense is playing so well that, the Commanders just can't get that connection going. So in the end of the day, I think the Commanders are going to give it their best shot considering the playoff implications and everything, right? There's teams on their heels like the Seahawks and Rams are battling it out, and whoever doesn't win that division is going to be hoping for a wild card spot. The Cardinals are also in there. Technically, the 49ers aren't eliminated. So, they gotta win games, and, they can make it up after this week, but you would like to have this one. So they're going to give it their best shot, but I think the Eagles are going to endure the Commanders' best effort with their ability to hold the ball and keep it away from Jaden Daniels. And like I said, the Commanders could be in real trouble if they drop this one. So as a Giants fan, I hope they win. It'd be interesting, but I'm giving my honest take. I think the Eagles win and cover. Up next, we have the 3-11 Cleveland Browns traveling to Cincinnati to take on the 6-8 Bengals. Oof. The Bengals are still alive, aren't they? They're one of those 3, 6-8 AFC teams. We're hoping either the Chargers or Broncos can slip out of the playoffs, and that one of them can just be that, that fairy tale team that just slips into the playoffs. But first, you got to win 1 week at a time, and it's going to start with this Browns game. They got a bit of a toss-up or a layup with this one. They're favored by 7.5, and there's a 47-point total. That would be a projection of 27-20, somewhere in that range. For the Browns, they're going to be without Shelby Harris. Jameis is questionable. Tillman is concussed and questionable. Njoku has a hammy and he's questionable. Martin Emerson Jr., Sund, he's questionable with a concussion. And then for the Bengals, they're not going to have Tanner Hudson, who's like one of their 4 tight ends, or even 5, I don't know. And then they're going to be without Sam Hubbard, their other defensive end, the Trey Hendrickson. And then without Sheldon Rankins, with an illness. Man, they got a lot of injuries on the defensive line. And then questionable for them, Charlie Jones, depth wide receiver. Orlando Brown, with a fibula, is going to be questionable. And then right guard Alex Kappa. Fortunately, they do have Amarius Mims, so if either Orlando Brown or Trent Brown go down, they can plug Amarius Mims in there, and I'm sure he's itching. They get as many reps as he can in his rookie year. But obviously, the Bengals need to win this game, right? The Browns are starting DTR, so even though the Bengals are missing guys on this defensive line, whether it's by completely outscoring them and just kind of playing, they won't have to play like a catch-up offense. They can play offense the way they want to and kind of control the clock with their passing game, keeping it in bounds against a 3-11 Browns team that's essentially giving up. I think they'll cover. I mean, DTR and the Browns offense might stumble into some good plays, but I think the Bengals will be using this game to lock in and get ready for the playoffs because they need to win out. And this is not going to be even close to their hardest game. So they really need to clean up a lot of the small mistakes and mental errors and failed executions that they've been having all year on defense. And the offense just needs to keep doing what it's doing, but maybe playing a positive game script this time. So I'm taking the Bengals to win 27-17. That would be Cincinnati minus 7.5 and under 47. I just think the Browns might not score that many points. So even if the Bengals do go off, I'm just not sure if that over is going to hit. Up next, we have the 12-2 Detroit Lions coming off of their loss to the Bills last week, traveling to Chicago to take on the 4-10 Bears. So this was a game we saw on Thanksgiving, and we saw the Lions win. It was a lot closer than we thought it would be. The Bears kind of lost the game by failing to manage the clock. They were in field goal range. I believe they could tie it up or try to score, but they had like 15 seconds after a play ended, and they could have called a timeout, but they kind of ran up like they were going to spike it, and they looked like they were going to run a play, and then Caleb Williams threw it deep, and it was incomplete, and that was the game. So it was a pretty wild first showing, and the Lions had been seeming to regress a little bit. So a lot of people are saying upset. Also considering, look at the Vegas line. I feel like this would have been a lot different before. It's Detroit minus 6.5 and over 48. So that over under is a little high. I think they're expecting a bit more of a catch up from the Bears, and then the Lions have to score more points to keep them away instead of relying on their defense. And there's some injuries that have been suffered by both teams. For the Lions, they lost David Montgomery for the year. That's a huge loss. Their power running back. They still do have Gibbs, and I think Craig Reynolds is going to get in there, but that's a huge loss for them. And then linebacker Jalen Reeves-Maybin with a neck. Questionable for them is Graham Glasgow, Safety Brian Branch with a calf, and then Ifeatu Melifonwu with a hand is questionable. For the Bears, their left guard Ryan Bates is out with a concussion. Doubtful for them is running back Travis Homer, not their starter. Questionable left guard Tevin Jenkins. They moved him to guard. I suppose left tackle Braxton Jones. Oh my God. Defensive tackle Javon Dexter with a knee is questionable, and then cornerback Jalen Johnson with an illness. Oh man, this Bears team is very beat up, and that is a good main reason why I am taking the Lions. 28-21. That would be Detroit covering minus 6.5 and over 48. Chicago is talented at spots like wide receiver, quarterback, right? Their defense has good players, but they might be missing a lot due to injury. And also, I think once again, you're going to see the same thing as I said last time. I basically boiled it down to is, I think both teams have talent, right? And in the end of the day, I think it's just coaching that's going to win the Lions that game. And what do you know? That's what happened. So I think in this, you might see something very similar. But you know what? I think the Bears are going to come different this time. They fired their head coach. They know they're eliminated from the playoffs. After this, is anyone really going to care what they do? Even if they win a couple games, they want to see how you play against playoff teams. So don't be surprised if they go into this game and play their best game of the year. I'm still going with the Lions, but don't be surprised if the Bears do end up covering because they're going to want to prove something in this game. So, as I stated, I'm taking the Lions to win 28-21. I would say I'm more confident in the over than I am in the spread. And up next, we have one of my favorite two teams actually to talk about. We have the 8-6 Los Angeles Rams traveling to MetLife to take on the New York Jets, who are 4-10. Now, the Rams are favored in this game by 3.5. There's an over-under of 46, so that's about a 25 to 21 projection. The Rams, outside of IR, have no one listed on the injury report. It actually says NA, so good for them. Finally healthy. And then the Jets, they're going to be without Michael Carter, their corner. Questionable Braylon Allen, right guard Elijah Vera Tucker. That would be unfortunate. Their defensive lineman, Lecky Fotu. He's like a 3 tech, and then Quinnen Williams as well with a hamstring is questionable. So this defensive line, even if it plays, is not going to be 100%. Elijah Vera Tucker, their guard and their backup running back, not going to be 100% even if they play. So it might get a little ding to the Jets offense. But I thought the Jets offense didn't look too bad last week, actually. So I'm going to take the over in this game, and I'm going to take the Rams to win 28-24. So I am taking the Rams to cover 3.5, and I am taking over 46. The Rams are coming off a long week. They're versing the Jets. The Jets are demoralized. They might be missing players, critical players on the interior, the defensive line. And I think this should be an easy win for the Rams compared to what they've been doing the past couple weeks. Like I said, they're healthy outside of who's on their IR. And I think there's going to be points in this game, and they're going to be able to keep up with it, right? They have that balanced offense. They have such a solid established identity, and the Jets are the opposite of that. They don't have an identity outside of Aaron Rodgers just throwing the ball to Devontae Adams. That's all they really got. So I am taking the Rams 1 foot in front of the other, right? To get one more win, get the 9-6, really secure that playoff positioning because the Seahawks are playing the Vikings this week, and that's going to be a tough win for them, and they might drop that. And now coming up next, we have a game that's actually going to be getting a video of its own posted tomorrow, and that's because it is of the New York Giants, who are 2-12. Tied for the worst record in the league, and they're going to Atlanta to take on the 7-7 Falcons, who decided to start Michael Penix Jr., the rookie quarterback they shockingly took in the draft this year, over Kirk Cousins, who they also signed to a contract, like a 4-year contract, basically near top dollar, and this offseason as well. So they signed Kirk, they drafted the rookie quarterback. Everyone's like, what are you guys doing? Who is your quarterback going to be? This rookie QB is already young. What kind of management is this? Well, Kirk was coming off a torn Achilles, and he really didn't look that great the past 5 weeks. He was 1-4, and even in the game they won, it was against the Desmond Ridder-led Raiders. So I honestly think this is justified. And also another reason it's justified is why you're playing the New York Giants, one of the worst teams in the league. You're favored by 8.5 over 42, or over under 42. So despite starting Michael Penix, Vegas still has much confidence that the Falcons can win by close to 2 scores in this one. So let's talk about injuries. The Giants are going to be without left guard Aaron Stinney, who's a backup, linebacker Bobby Okereke, who's our starting middle linebacker, and then linebacker Patrick Johnson with a knee. Oh man, we're going to be thin at linebacker. Doubtful is cornerback Greg Stroman, who's gotten in there here and there as the team was struggling this year. And then questionable is Tyrone Tracy Jr. with an ankle. Austin Schlottman, backup center, is questionable with a fibula. Brian Burns with an ankle and neck he's been dealing with all year. He's such a savage. We're playing through that. Linebacker Deontay Johnson, that's a third linebacker who we might not be without. So it's going to be like McFadden and then Musau. And then corner is Deontay Banks, who's questionable with the rib. So the Giants have a lot on the injury report. It's not as bad as it's been over the past few weeks, but still not ideal. A lot of depth guys, some important guys in there like Bobby, who you're definitely not going to have. You might not have Brian Burns, so that's not good. For the Falcons, they're going to be without Casey Washington Jr. Questionable for them is Cordell Hodge. And then Lorenzo Carter, former Giant, former third-round pick made by Dave Gettleman. I always thought we should keep him. He's a freak athlete, but Aziz turned out to be better, so we kept him. So in this game, we're going to see Drew Lock versus Michael Penix. Drew Lock is back. Penix has a chance to get comfy. Like I said, this Giants team, they're just trying to do something right, but they don't really care if they lose at the same time. But at the end of the day, I think Atlanta should still cover. You never really know this late in the season. I mean, this Giants team might be feeling a little bit disrespected, right? They chose to start a rookie quarterback against us. Are you kidding me? I think we have the best quarterback on the roster starting, so I think that helps too. But with these injuries too, and just considering that I think deep down inside the organization they might not be trying to win, that could be all it takes. I don't think I've ever seen a situation pan out like this where a rookie quarterback is starting 3 weeks before the playoffs, but it's going to be interesting to watch, and it's going to start this week. Atlanta wins 27-18. So that would be Atlanta minus 8.5 and over 42 for all the reasons I explained above. Up next, we have the 7-7 Arizona Cardinals traveling to Carolina to take on the 3-11 Panthers. The Vegas lines for this game is Arizona minus 4.5 and an over-under of 47. So that would project about a 26-21 victory for the Cardinals. Cardinals are going to be without their backup rookie running back, Trey Benson, left tackle Paris Johnson Jr., outside linebacker Jesse Lukita with a thigh, linebacker Mac Wilson with a concussion, cornerback Elijah Jones, and then kicker Matt Prater. Questionable for them. Running back DJ Dallas, he's a backup. Right guard Evan Brown. Defensive lineman Roy Lopez, and then cornerback Sean Murphy Bunting. Man, so the Cardinals are pretty beat up, but the Panthers are too. They're missing their first draft pick in this year's draft. Xavier Legette with the hip is out. Questionable for them is Jalen Coker, who's been stepping up for them. Wide receiver David Moore. Left tackle Ike Ekwonu. He was a first-round pick. He's not going to play. Right guard Robert Hunt with an illness. What's going around? All these illnesses. Defensive end Ashawn Robinson. And then outside linebacker Jadeveon Clowney. So quite a bit of players missing from both sides. But the way I look at this is simple. I think the Cardinals, it only gets tougher for them after this, and they need this. So I'm going to take them to win 28-20. So that's Arizona minus 4.5 and over 47. They've looked good here and there, that being the Panthers, right? But by good, I don't mean them winning games. They might have covered a couple spreads here and there, but they got destroyed by the Cowboys, right? They still haven't really won a game outside of the Giants game and the Saints game. So they still really are struggling. And this Cardinals team is, they're much better than this, right? Now, you only do see really like two versions of the Cardinals every week. It's either where they're beating a really great team or like they're blowing out like an average team, or they lose in like embarrassing fashion somehow, right? Like the offense is terrible or the defense gets rolled. So I don't think this is going to be a game that they win close. They're either going to win covering the spread like I have them doing, or the Panthers are going to come out and just shock them and win this game. But like I said, the Cardinals are very desperate. They're 7-7. They have to win out if they want any chance of making the playoffs. I don't know if there's some weird scenario where they make it at 9-8, but you understand what I'm saying. You got to hope to win out. And there's a bunch of NFC teams who are still fighting for it. So you got to win this game. Like I said, I'm taking them to win 28-20, cover the spread of 4.5, and then over 47. And then they're on to next week where it only gets tougher and they verse the rest of their division. So good luck to the Cardinals. We have our last 1 o'clock game, which features the 3-11 Tennessee Titans, who are traveling to Indianapolis to take on the 6-8 Colts. Now, the Colts are one of those three AFC teams who are really hoping to make the playoffs, and they have a 6-8 record. They have to win out in order to have even a chance to make it. And here you are left with a gift of a 3-11 team in the last 3 weeks of the season, and you're looking at this and you're hoping for a win, and that's how it turns into a trap game. Now, the Vegas spread for this isn't really all that crazy. It's Colts minus 3.5, and there's an over-under of 42.5. The Titans are going to be without Colton Dowell, wide receiver, Luke Gifford with a concussion, linebacker. Questionable for them is Will Levis with the right shoulder, Tony Pollard with the ankle, Jalen Duncan tackle with the hamstring, linebacker Kenneth Murray with a hamstring, Otis Reese, and then kicker Nick Folk, another team with an injured kicker, and a couple other starting guys in there who are injured. And then for the Colts, they're going to be without Alec Pierce. They have downs. Linebacker EJ Speed with the knee. Questionable for them is Ashton Doolin, who makes some plays here and there. Mo Alley Cox, who always scores 3 touchdowns every year by mossing someone. Center Ryan Kelly. Linebacker Jalen Carleys. And cornerback Julius Brents, and then kicker Matt Gay. That's a third team who's missing a kicker. What's up with these kickers, man? But yeah, so there's a decent amount of injuries on both sides. But in the end of the day, I do still think the Colts are going to win, but I am going to take the Titans to cover the spread of 3.5. So I'm taking the Colts to win 24-21. That is going to be over 42.5. But like I said, Tennessee plus 3.5. Why? As I explained in the very beginning, this has got trap game written all over it. You got a team that's super desperate. And I'm not saying they're going to come in unprepared, but this Titans team, they managed to beat the Texans earlier this season. So if they manage to beat the Texans, then they can certainly beat the Colts, no matter what the situation is or how desperate they are. So there is a potential upset here. They got Rudolph in there, so they're going to be up against a bit more of a steady effort from the Titans, where I feel like they're not going to hand them the game away. I'm not saying Rudolph hasn't made turnover worthy plays before, but it's got to be better than Levis, despite Levis's upside. I mean, he turns the ball over like crazy. So I think the Colts are going to get the win. But like I said, I think Tennessee's also got what it takes to cover the spread. They did beat the Texans divisional game, so we'll see. But like I said, I have the Colts winning 24-21. Titans cover the 3.5, and then over 42.5. The 4 o'clock games to start things off, we're going to talk about the Vikings, who are 12-2, and they're going to Seattle, to the 12th man, to take on the 8-6 Seahawks. Now, in this game, I was a little surprised when I saw the spread, and I'll tell you why, but it is Vikings -3, and the over-under is at 43.5. So that's going to project about 23-20, right, somewhere in that range. And in this game, the Vikings are going to be without Jalen Redmond with a concussion, defensive tackle, and then cornerback Fabian Moreau, okay, with a hip, questionable. Fullback CJ Ham, no, and then safety Harrison Smith. For the Seahawks, they're going to be without tight end Brady Russell, without linebacker Trevis Gibson, and then without safety, Kayvon Wallace. So there are, there's a few injuries here and there, but for the most part, both teams are healthy. But there was something that is not listed on this. Much like the Chiefs, they did not list Geno Smith on this injury report as questionable or anything like that because he's going to play. This is too important of a game to miss. He had a little bit of a scary knee injury in the Packers game, but it looks like he's going to be okay enough to play, but he's not going to be 100%, right? But because Geno is playing, I do think that will actually galvanize and inspire the team. This Vikings team has an awesome record, and they have played up to it. But at the same time, they are only 2-2 against teams above 500. And this Seahawks team is just above that threshold. So it's a bit of a trap game. I think the Vikings, they, like I said, they have played up to their record, but I would say they were playing better earlier in the year, like when they beat Green Bay and when they beat Houston by just absolutely destroying them. That was when they were at their prime. They're still winning right now, but I'm just not quite as convinced by it. It hasn't been quite the same. But like I said, the Seahawks team is going to be inspired, right? They're going to be very inspired in this game, and the playoffs is on the line for them. I mean, the Rams, they're going full steam ahead. They got the Jets this week. So you might as well just write them up as already having the win, already being 9-6, and already ahead of you for the division. And you're playing the Vikings, like you need to win this game. So as for the Vikings, I think it honestly might even be a good thing, right, for them to lose and get a little bit of a humbling loss, even if it is at the cost of the 1 seed, because you want to be tested and be shown what your weaknesses are before you get into the playoffs. If it happens early in the year, you get complacent after going on those winning streaks. So that's a little bit of football psychology for you. But at the end of the day, I am still taking the Vikings to win 22-21, though. So I am taking Seahawks +3, and that is going to be under 43.5. So still taking them to win. Vikings fans, don't get mad at me again, but I actually do want to see you guys win this game. And then, you got 2 games next week that could help push you up those power rankings. Up next, we have the 11-3 newly number 1 ranked Buffalo Bills, who are traveling to New England to take on the 3-11 Patriots. In this game, it features a tied for highest spread this week of Buffalo -14 and an over-under of 46.5. So that would project about a Bills win of 30-16, somewhere in that range. And in this game, the Patriots are going to be without JaMychal Hasty, without Marcus Jones, the cornerback. Questionable for them is Caden Wallace, offensive tackle, left guard Cole Strange, defensive end Keon White, safety Kyle Duggar, and safety Jabril Peppers. So, they could be missing a lot of guys in this game for the Bills. Curtis Samuel's questionable, Matt Milano, Balin Spector, who's a linebacker, Dorian Williams, who's a linebacker, cornerback Rasul Douglas, and then DeMar Hamlin, safety, and then safety Taylor Rapp. All questionable, all for the Bills. So they might all play or they might all miss. You don't know what's going to happen. But in this game, I think I'll tell you what's going to happen. I think the Bills are going to win 35-17. They're going to cover those 14 points, and it's going to be over 46.5. It's 11-3 versus 3-11. Is that enough said? Or what about MVP versus rookie quarterback? Crazier things have certainly happened. But I think the way that this would have to happen, like the way it's happened in years past, is the Patriots defense is a really good day. They do contain Josh Allen, and they're able to score enough points of their own to win like 23-20 or something like that. I don't see them holding the Bills offense to less than even 27 or 28 points, to be honest. If they did, I'd be really surprised, and I'd have to push them up the power rankings. I would have expected it from them in the middle of the season, but at this point in the season, I'm just not sure I see it. So Bills win 35-17, one of the simpler games to cover this week. Next, we have the game of the week. In terms of importance when it comes to the playoffs, we have the San Francisco 49ers who are 6-8 traveling to Miami to take on the 6-8 Dolphins. So they're across worlds. They're in opposite conferences. AFC, Dolphins, NFC, 49ers. They're both 6-8, but they're both not eliminated from the playoffs. They both have to win this game. I've seen the spread go back and forth um, between, -1 Miami, -1 San Fran. Uh, and then the over-under is set at 44.5, which I think is kind of fair. For the 49ers, they're going to be without Isaac Orendo, and they're also going to be without Trent Williams. So that's a big loss. Questionable for them is Nick Bosa. These are big names right here. I mean, because Orendo is technically the starter because they don't have any of their running backs. For the defensive tackle, Robert Beal Jr., and then Dre Greenlaw. He got out there. He didn't finish the game last week, so hopefully they can get him back for the full game. And then for the Dolphins, they're going to be without Blake Ferguson, who's their long snapper, non-football illness. Okay. Doubtful for them is Dwayne Eskridge, who's like a kick returner, and then Jalen Waddle. Oh, that's not good. Questionable. Tyreek Hill. Wrist personal. What does that mean? Tyreek, you are like one of the best players on this team. You cannot be missing right now for a personal thing. Your team is fighting for the playoffs. Teron Armstead, veteran tackle, questionable with a knee. Right tackle, Kendall Lamb. Bradley Chubb's questionable, who's a pass rusher. And then Cameron Good with a knee. So in this game, I am going to take the 49ers to win. Both teams have a lot of injuries that they could end up dealing with that could really hurt them. But at the end of the day, I think the 49ers are a much more established team. It's like the father coaching tree, right? McDaniel came from Shanahan. And if I didn't say the score already, 24-20, 49ers win. So that would be whatever the spread is, and then under 44.5. So, like I said, this is a do or die game, a life or death game. It's the battle of 6-8s. One team is going to walk out with joyous battle cries, and one is going to walk out like kicking and screaming and complaining that the refs blew a call or something. But in the end of the day, I think that team is going to be the Dolphins, right? I mean, like what is this personal thing that Tyreek Hill is dealing with? Like, I just don't understand. The 49ers had drama of their own last week, but I think they can endure it, right? Because they've been here so many times. But the Dolphins, even when they do get to the playoff times or like the playoff race, like they're not good in cold weather. They are home, so that is not really a thing in this game. But I just think, okay, something's replacing it now. So I trust Shanahan more to get the win in this game. I'm taking 49ers. Once again, I will repeat myself, 24-20, under 44.5. Next, this game has a theme of its own. We have the 3-11 Jacksonville Jaguars, who are traveling to Las Vegas to take on the 2-12 Raiders. There is a line on this game of Vegas -1 and over under of 40. And the Jaguars have no one on the injury report, right, for questionable or doubtful or out. The Raiders have Jordan Meredith, doubtful, who's a guard. Questionable for them is Kayani Muaga, cornerback Nate Hobbs, and cornerback Sam Webb. So not too much to talk about when it comes to injuries, but we know in this game we have Mac Jones versus Desmond Ridder, right? All their quarterbacks are injured. This is what they're working with at this point. And if you could tell just by looking at their records, this is the first draft game of the year. Every game we've talked about this week has had some sort of theme. This one is the draft game because the winner is really sort of a loser, right? If the Raiders win, then they're going to fall out of that number one draft spot, right? And who knows who's going to end up with that number one overall pick. But then for the Jaguars, if they end up winning this game, then there are a bunch of other teams who are 3-11, and you're going to jump to like pick 8, right? And they don't need like a quarterback or anything, but you'd like to have the highest draft pick possible. You're one of the worst teams in the league, and you have been all year, right? There has been no signs of hope. So in this game, I'm going to take the Raiders to just win. I will be completely honest. I am a Giants fan, and I do want them to win, but I do honestly think that the Raiders are playing harder than the Jaguars are right now. I mean, the Jaguars didn't look too bad on offense last week versus the Jets, but they did still lose, and they were playing the Jets. This Raiders team with Desmond Ridder played against the Falcons in prime time, and despite their offense looking so bad, they were still in the game the entire time, right? They held the Falcons to 15 points. Now, I understand that Kirk has not looked good, and maybe that was a bit of a fluke. I do think part of it was the fact that they are just playing hard for Antonio Pierce. So Like I said, I could see this game going either way, but I'm going to take the Raiders to win 20-17. This game is going to have a lot of draft implications, and I can't wait to see who comes out on top. I hope it's the Raiders. And now, finally, we have arrived to our Sunday night game. Week 1, this would have looked a lot more fun, but now, without Dak Prescott, the 6-8 Cowboys are at home, and they're going to be taking on the 8-6 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So this is two teams who have not yet clinched the playoffs. One team, it's a real long shot, and even if they get in, you're not really thinking they're going to do much. And the other team is looking like they're pretty hot right now, and they're much closer, right? But at the end of the day, both teams are going to be trying in this game. I do believe that. The Bucks are favored by 4 points, and there's a 48.5 point total. So it's pretty high scoring game projection. It's about like 26-22 without the decimals. So like I said, it's a decently high scoring looking game. The Buccaneers are going to be without Cameron Johnson. They're going to be without Antoine Winfield Jr. as well. So maybe that might open up some space for CeeDee Lamb. Doubtful for them is Cade Otton, starting tight end. And then questionable is going to be Mike Edwards. For the Cowboys, they're going to be without wide receiver Jalen Brooks, who's been sort of developing this year. And they're also going to be without their starting corner, Trayvon Diggs. Questionable for them is guard TJ Bass, Micah Parsons. If you don't know what position he is, I just don't know what to say. Linebacker Eric Kendricks, personal and calf. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with these personal reasons this week. Linebacker Nick Vigil with a foot. Cornerback Jordan Lewis, and then safety Juwanye Thomas. I hope I said that correctly. So there are some injuries on mostly on the Cowboys' questionable side, but other than Antoine Winfield, Diggs, Jalen Brooks, and Parsons being questionable, I would say and I guess there's a lot of questionable guys for the Cowboys, but we just don't know what's going to happen with them. But Diggs, Brooks, and Winfield being out, yeah, that's going to have a bit of an impact. But I would say in the end of the day, they're missing an important defensive back and backup wide receiver, so maybe like a wide receiver 3. So I think we still know who these teams are. The Cowboys haven't been an easy out all year. As much as I hate to say it, they've been sticking around for the majority of their games, and I think they're going to do the same thing in this one. They're going to stick around for 2 quarters, a half, maybe even 3 quarters. But in the end of the day, that is going to depend on the questionable guys. How many guys end up missing? How long they stay in the game, that's what it's going to depend on. I'm going to roll with Dallas to cover the spread of +4 and pick the Bucks to win 26-23. I do have a very strong confidence that the Buccaneers will win, but it's that spread with the Cowboys. Like I haven't had a good read on them, and I don't even think it's because I've been like mostly down on them. I don't think anyone saw them beating the Commanders or like destroying the Panthers. So I'm just kind of sort of trying to respect them. The Buccaneers have looked great, but this Cowboys team cannot be underestimated. So I'll repeat, I'm taking the Buccaneers to win 26-23, Dallas +4, and over 48.5. I'm just going to roll with that. I don't know what's going to happen with the injuries, but we will see. And now, finally, we have our last game, our Monday Night Football game. And this features the 5-9 New Orleans Saints, who are traveling to Green Bay to take on the 10-4 Packers. In this game, the Packers are favored by 14, and there's an over-under of 42. So I'm just going to tell you from the start, actually, this time. I'm taking the Packers to win 31-16. So that would be Packers to cover the spread and over 42. I don't have any injury statuses for any of these players yet because this is being recorded on December 20th. This game is going to be Monday, so a couple days away still. I have this weird feeling that the Packers offense is just going to struggle. I think it goes back to the last time these two teams played, and it took a fourth quarter miracle quarter from Jordan Love for them to win this game with like 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns or some crazy effort from him. But I think that feeling's wrong. The Packers are rolling, and I think they'll just cover if they just do what they've been doing the past couple weeks. The Saints are starting Spencer Rattler, so even if the Packers offense kind of struggles to get it going, I think the Packers defense is good enough at forcing turnovers to get some out of a rookie quarterback like Rattler, who, despite having some upside, has made some mistakes in the games he's played in this year. And the Saints seem to have trouble, figuring out whether to start him or Hainer. So I don't think it matters who's in the game. I think the Packers are going to cover this spread and win 31-16. All right, so before we hit the outro, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys just a quick breakdown of the playoffs and the playoff picture, who's clinched and who's still fighting to get in. on the AFC side, looks like we got all of our division winners pretty much figured out. We got the Chiefs at 13-1. They got the 1 seed right now. At number 2, we got the Buffalo Bills at 11-3, who surpassed the Steelers, getting a win, and the Steelers dropping a game to the Eagles. So that's your first 3 seeds. The 3 is the Steelers, who are 10-4. And then our 4 seed in the AFC is the Houston Texans, who are 9-5. In the hunt, we have the 5th seed Baltimore Ravens, right? So they're in. They're not technically in the hunt. They're just not confirmed because they're not winning a division. And then you have your 6th seed Los Angeles Chargers, who are 9-6. And then your 7th seed is your Denver Broncos, who are also 9-6. They just played each other this week. We talked about it earlier. So the Chargers are now the 6th seed and the Broncos are now the 7th seed. Now, in the bubble, right, we have the 3 teams I've been talking about in this video. The Indianapolis Colts, who are 6-8. The Dolphins, who are 6-8. And the Bengals, who are 6-8. Now, I would normally go break down the schedules of all 3 of these teams. But I'm going to go straight to narratives for this one. The Colts, I like them. But they're not consistent enough, I don't think, to win out. So I don't think they're going to get it done. The Dolphins, theoretically, have the upside to do it. But the theory breaks down every year with this team when we get into cold weather. They're home this week, so it might give you another week of hope if they win. But I just think I just don't have faith in Tua and the way this team operates in, different weather conditions. And when I look, and then it just gets worse when I look at the Bengals, right? Because for these 2 teams, it just gets worse. Because I say, okay, Colts, Dolphins, all right, I could see one of you guys battling it out with each other kind of on equal tiers. No, the Bengals, I don't care what their record is. They're not as bad as 6-8. They're just simply not. You look at the Chiefs and how many close games the Bengals would literally be 7-7 if they won that Chiefs game, right? So despite how bad of a season they've had, I have so much faith in them to go win 3 in a row. Even if they are playing Pittsburgh in the last week of the season, they got the Browns this week. So that should be a win. And I forget who they play the following week, but I just have a lot of faith in Joe Burrow. So I don't think the Colts or Dolphins are getting in. I think the Bengals have a shot, but the Broncos or Chargers are going to have to essentially not lose out, but they're going to have to lose 2 of the next 3, and either the Bengals have a tiebreaker or they have to lose out. So slim chances for the Bengals, Dolphins, and Colts. I would put my money on the Bengals, but to be honest, I think this AFC playoff bracket is set. We're just going to figure out who's the 5, 6, and 7 seed, what order. And that's all she wrote on the AFC side. And then, of course, things could shuffle around in the first 4, but looks like the Chiefs got that 1 seed. And I guess there's 2 games between the Bills and the Texans. But yeah, so that's my take on the AFC playoffs. The AFC is much more interesting. We have 3 teams who are 12-2, and then nothing else is clinched. We have the Lions they're all tied for the 1 seed, really, right? Because the Lions are technically ahead of the Vikings, but these teams are all going to play each other at the end of the season soon. There's a tie for first place. Lions, Eagles, Vikings, all 12-2. But one of those teams, Lions or Vikings, would have to be a wild card. All right, so your 3 seed would be the Buccaneers or the Rams. Both teams are 8-6 and leading their division right now. So they look pretty locked in to winning the NFC West. To me, the Rams, I think they got it. Geno Smith is hurt, and he's playing the Vikings this week. It's going to be a tough game. It's a game that the Rams won, and it might end up being the difference maker. And then the Buccaneers, 8-6, same thing. The Falcons, they're starting Penix. I think it might actually work, but it might be too little too late. And there's a bunch of other teams trying to get in here, so I'm not sure that the Falcons would be able to slip in behind this Buccaneers team, but I think the Buccaneers have got it. So I think for sure you can say the Lions, Eagles, Buccaneers, Rams, Vikings, and Packers will make it. Packers are 10-4. They're not dropping out of that 6th seed. The Lions or Vikings will be the 5 seed. So who is going to be the 7 seed? Right now, it's the Washington Commanders, who are 9-5, but this week they play the Eagles, so they will most likely be 9-6. And then you have all of these teams below them. Let's look at them. Right behind them is the Seahawks at 8-6. They play the Vikings this week, though, so could be a loss. Most likely a loss, actually. Falcons, they're probably going to be 8-7 after this week because they're playing the Giants. Cardinals should be 8-7. After this week, they're playing the Panthers. And then you get the 49ers, Cowboys, and Saints. I'm not doing it. I'm not talking about it. I mean, I guess it's technically possible for the 49ers, but I think it's really between this Seahawks team um, and this Commanders team. I mean, the Falcons and Cardinals have a decent shot, but some other stuff needs to happen. These Commanders and Seahawks team are in control of their destiny. And if this is where I will go and I will look at the schedules. So the Seahawks versus the Vikings, likely L. The Bears, likely win. And then the Rams. Oh man, I love week 18. What a showdown that's going to be. We're going to have Lions, Vikings, and then Seahawks, Rams, which is likely going to have playoff implications in both games. That's going to be awesome. But then the Commanders, they have the Eagles, likely loss. Falcons, probable, I would say most likely a win. And then you got the Cowboys, who I would say should probably be a win, but they lost last time. And the Cowboys would love to play spoiler against a division rival. So I would say these schedules honestly are pretty equal. I mean, you have a definite loss on both sides, Eagles and Vikings. And then you got Falcons and Bears, right? And then you got Cowboys and I would say actually Falcons, Rams. And then I would say Bears, Cowboys. So I would say I would rather verse the Bears than the Cowboys, and I would rather verse the Falcons than the Rams. So more or less, these schedules are canceling out, and the best team will get in. But actually, Commanders are 9-5, right? So they're one game ahead. Seahawks would have to win 3 games, and then the Commanders would have to drop one, and then they'd have to win some tiebreaker, right? So that's going to be it remains to be seen. We don't have quite enough information yet to really say whether or not who I think is going to make it out of there. But I just wanted to break that down for you guys in case you were unaware, right? Because I have all the records here and I do say them, but it's a lot to keep up with. So there you have it. Week 16 score predictions, Thursday Night Football recap, and a bonus playoff picture breakdown as of week 16. So I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. Please leave a like on the video to support the channel. Tell me in the comments, which of these games did I get wrong? I don't really feel like there's many upsets to be had this week. I don't know. We'll see what happens. There's always something crazy that happens. So please tell me in the comments, what is that going to be? And then if you aren't already, please subscribe. And thank you all again so much for 150 subscribers. I am amazed that we have come this far as a channel, you guys as the audience, and me as a creator. For you guys, I've learned so much, and your guys' support always drives me to want to do better. So keep supporting me, and I will keep making better content for you guys. I promise you that. And stay tuned for tomorrow's video. It's going to be a further breakdown of the Giants, but a little bit more of a laid-back, casual talk, whereas in today, I gave you the detailed breakdown. So once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.